Alright, 2 days, 2 videos. I decided to make up for the fact I didn't put out my second one in I don't know how many days, where other people's already put out more than two. So, kind of making up for lost time, kind of have the will to talk about something else anyways. This time, we're going to be talking about a comment request I had. And if you hear me tapping my laptop, I am very sorry because my laptop sucks with audio. But basically, one of the commenters, I think on my first video, I'm real professional by the way, people in general have been commenting and putting their own what ifs, which annoys me. No, not really. No, it's actually pretty cool because, frankly, it's kind of hard to really think of these ideas, but then when you see how many people have their own ideas, it's a little easier, because then they're like, hey, what do you think about this? And it's a little flattering to think people are saying, can you say, rant about what you think would happen if this happened? Because what am I, an expert? I am no one special. But if people want to hear me rant about stuff they're interested in, I'll do it. Again, you probably hear me tap my laptop, and I apologize for that. Alright, let's see who left the frickin' comment so I can give them credit where credit's due and not sound like a jerk off stealing someone else's what if question or idea. It's not that one. Yeah, it must have been my second one. Or is it? No, it's the second one. Okay, go back. I sound real professional, right? I'm freaking looking for a comment I should have looked up before I started recording, and I'm not even gonna bother to cut this part out. I am so cool. Okay. Derp, derp, derp. What the? What? Where is it? Oh, yeah, here it is. Jeez. Okay, the Kurgan 5098. I am so sorry. The Kurgan 50982. Jesus. Or, 50,982. Asked me, actually, on both my videos, I should have remembered that, but I are stupid sometimes. So I apologize for that, and I apologize for all the noise I'm likely making with this crappy laptop I have. It has poor quality, yet it picks up fucking everything and makes it sound terrible. I also apologize for the amount of cursing I do. It's just how I talk. I curse a lot. I think it also helps me talk because when I try to not curse, I sound really awkward, and it's just not how I usually speak. Okay, so the Kurgan 50,982 basically asked the question. Here's it re-asked. This is it. I would like you to do a what if Revan did not save the Republic and made the new/old Sith Empire and killed the Emperor. I think he means on Droman, and he wants me to talk about it. He asked me that twice. It's not a bad what if question. Again, this is coming from my own personal beliefs on what would happen. I'm not an expert on anything, and I'm not. If you hear the question and you have your own ideas on what would happen, that's legitimate, because again, this didn't happen. This is a total what if scenario. What do you think would happen? If you have an idea on what you think would happen, leave it in the comment section. That's what they're there for, not pointless YouTube wars. Anyway, what if Revan had created his own Sith Empire as he did, maintained it, beaten the Republic, and basically went to war with the Sith Emperor in waiting on Droman? Okay. I asked Tim himself which way I should go. Should I go the route that Revan simply never got his memory lost, and the strike team never attacked him on his own flagship, not allowing Malak to screw him over as he did? Or I could have gone the route that he just went with the dark side ending to KOTOR to KOTOR, and he went on from there. That one seems a little gamey, like, you know, you can come up with all sorts of weird stuff. I'm going down the line of basically he didn't get the strike team attacking him, and Malak wasn't able to portray him in that fashion. So we have a Revan who has all of his memories, all of his original intentions, all of his plans. There you go. So this is kind of two what ifs, but they're the same concept. You know, what if Malak wasn't able to portray Revan, ergo allowing Revan to build his own empire like he was planning on, obviously. So we're going to throw Bastila and everyone out the freaking window, because frankly none of them matter in this scenario, because Revan would likely have never met any of these people. Mission, Zalbar, Karth would probably die in the war at some point. Bastila probably die or be converted to a dark Jedi. Canderous probably would have stayed a criminal on Terrace, or moved on, you know, done other criminal works, as Mandalorians tend to do. HK-47, I don't know exactly. Maybe he'd still be in service to Revan if he wasn't lost. Yeah, that's probably HK-47 will probably still be in use. T3 is just some droid on Terrace. Juhani would probably die in the war, as sad as that might be to some people. Who else? Is there anyone else? I don't think there's anyone else. I could be forgetting somebody. Am I? No, I think that's it. Okay. So yeah, let's just leave the party out of it, please. I don't like talking about romance stuff. It's just my character. I'm not into that stuff. So don't ask me what about Bastila, because I don't care. I never even bothered with the romance when I was playing the games. Maybe once just to see what happens. But it's a very linear romance. You either have Bastila as a male, or you have fucking Karth Onasi as a female Revan. Canon is male, so we're going to go along the canon lines. And frankly, Karth is one of the most boring people there is. He's a little whiny too. And Bastila is Bastila. I'm not going there. As far as I'm concerned, she's either a dark Jedi, believe what you want to believe, or she's dead, because I'm not even going to talk about it. This is purely what if Revan was able to become Emperor and rule the galaxy as Emperor, whatever. I kind of feel like I'm rehashing my last one with Vader, except this one's with Revan, but you know, sometimes what if questions aren't always so easy to ask, because they might sound similar, or you have similar... That was a sound. You have similar concepts, you know. I'm probably going to answer somewhere down the line. What if Naga Sadao won the war? What if Exar Kun won his war? What if whoever won their war? You know, there's going to be similar questions with similar outcomes. But, you know, it always comes down to what someone's personal opinion on what would happen thereafter that's interesting and important to some people. Well, to most people. That's why they're even asking the question. I'm sorry if you hear background noises. I can't control the stuff around me, and I don't exactly have the greatest tools to remove it, but I'll try. Moving on. Okay, so the strike team never hit Revan's flagship. I don't remember what it was called. I'm sure it was something important. Malak wasn't able to betray him. Vis-a-vis, Revan never lost his position. As, you know, they never strictly say... That's the dumb thing about Star Wars. A lot of times they, like, skirt calling certain people Emperor, when it's obvious that they want them to be called Emperor. And they're just like, he's the Dark Lord of the Sith, he's in charge. No shit, he's also Emperor, just say it. I think it's because they don't want to be in direct defiance of Palpatine being an Emperor, but you already have Darth Vitiate, you already have Darth Krayt, you've already had several people claim to be an Emperor. Just call them Emperor. Don't be so stingy about it. Moving on. Okay. Revan, I think would continue then, since he didn't get attacked. And he probably knows Malak is after his ass, because Malak isn't exactly that subtle about what he's trying to do. He's never fucking subtle. But taking into account Revan and his tactics were a lot more subtle than Malak. He'd continue along that thought process. I think, considering I'm going to throw up a map and show you how much frickin' territory he had under his control already. That's a massive swath of the galaxy. Like, was it a third? I think. So, he'd continue on doing that. The thing about Revan, is that I'm not the biggest fan of Revan, because frankly, a lot of people act like Revan is Star Wars Jesus, simply because he's a Sith Lord and also a Jedi. Ooh, he touched the light and the dark side. How many people have exactly done that? You know? And they've stayed whatever, but just because Revan is Revan, because you, the character, the person, played as Revan, therefore he's so great, he's wonderful, he's Star Wars Jesus. He's good, but I'm not going to sit here and say he could beat people like Bane or Sidious or even Vader. I don't even get into that whole versus argument, but for people to say Revan is just so wonderful and great and he's the greatest character ever, he's not really. Especially now that by Legends canon, he's just this derpy looking dude with this douchebag hair flowing down his fucking head. And with this freaking 5 o'clock shadow and all those scars, he looks like the stereotypical angsty Darksider trying to do the right thing. Especially since in the Old Republic, he tries to commit genocide to do a good thing again. Oh, that makes him edgy, right? No, it makes him a freaking douchebag. Back to his old tactics of doing evil stuff for the greater good. And it's like, you've learned nothing, obviously. But considering that he wasn't a genocidal maniac like Malak, he'd continue on attacking key planets and worlds that would cripple the Republic as it was already freaking crippled. Considering the force that they had to attack the Starforge was pitiful compared to the actual size of the Sith fleet there. Sith in the lightest terms, of course, because, you know, as Kreia says, they aren't really Sith if you really think about it. Revan and Malak were the only kind of true Sith in the, again, lightest term, true Sith in his Sith Empire. Okay, taking that into account, the Starforge still be under his control, building endless amounts of droids, endless amounts of vehicles, endless amounts of ships, endless amounts of armor. Starforge can build anything, which, you know, is kind of comes in handy. The concept of taking raw matter from a star and converting it into whatever you need is really a smart concept, because, you know, a star is an endless freaking nuclear reactor until it finally goes nova, but that takes billions of years. It really wouldn't matter to Revan at that point. I mean, with that concept alone, you could, you know, make an argument that the Starforge can make endless amounts of copious freaking fuel. It can make amounts of anything. Just tell it what to make and it will make it, because if you take raw matter and turn it into whatever you need, given the right input, however that works, again, it's Star Wars sci-fi, let it go, you could make anything you want. People, I'm not sure about that one, but just other raw materials, you know what I'm saying? Besides, Revan doesn't look like he's some weird alchemy practitioner like Sadao or Kun even. So he goes along, he keeps going up the trade routes, he keeps attacking key Republic worlds. He doesn't have a problem gaining supporters, obviously, although his supporters are some of the biggest douchebags in the entire galaxy. You ever talk to a Sith trooper and they're always like, "Oh, I'm so great, I'm a Sith," and you're wearing the gaudiest Sith armor I've ever seen, and you're telling me I'm the douchebag? Whatever. His Sith troopers are some of the biggest D-bags in all of Star Wars galaxy, but, you know, whatever. He doesn't have a problem getting supporters. He has, you know, he has Malak as his dog, although I think at some point he would remove Malak. Because Malak would... He's a pansy. Like, it's kind of obvious in the game that he's a pansy at the core of it. He's not really a good Sith. But at some point, he'd feel obligated, I think, to finally attack Revan and try to take the throne for himself. And Revan would beat him. You know Revan would beat him. I don't need to tell you Revan could beat Malak. Malak is a nobody, frankly. Malak has a problem on a planet, just bombard it. Revan has a problem on the planet, he cuts it out like a surgeon. I'm not saying Revan is the worst Sith Lord, I'm just saying I don't personally like him as much as other people, but I'm getting way off topic. Okay, Revan, let's cut to the chase. Revan beats the Republic, he absorbs it, he takes over Coruscant. What happens? Okay. Considering his penchant for converting Jedi and not killing them, as much as he didn't want to kill them, but turning them into dark Jedi, and he didn't really seem to really take all of them and turn them into Sith, so to speak. He just turned them more into dark Jedi, like, oh, you're a dark Jedi? Okay, you can work for me, that's good. Whereas other Sith would maybe want to turn every Jedi they could into Sith, and it's very... The whole title debate, Dark Jedi and Sith, aren't they really the same thing? There is a difference, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But considering he liked to turn Dark Jedi, I think spoke a little to the fact that he still was a little like, yeah, I'll be a Sith, but it doesn't mean you have to be a Sith, that's for sure. So we can consider Malak just gone at this point, because Malak would fight him, Malak's dead, fuck Malak. Revan has more important stuff to deal with. He breaks all the Jedi he can. He takes over Dantooine, captures as many Jedi as he can, kills all that can't be turned or can't be caught, breaks those he can break, kills those he has to, like probably Vandar, most definitely Vrook. Fuck Vrook. Who's the other one? Jar. He'd probably have to kill Jar. Was the other guy's name Dorak or whatever? He'd probably have to kill him. And then the High Council, he'd probably have to kill Kavar. He'd probably have to kill Atris. Well, considering how flaky Atris is, maybe he wouldn't have to kill Atris. I don't know. He'd have to kill Lona Vash. He'd have to kill Zizkael. If that's his name, I could be getting that wrong, because I haven't played that freaking game in forever. Is there anyone even left on the High Council? Oh, there was Rook, and he's dead. So yeah, I think... And Bastila, if he caught Bastila, would be easily turned, but again, I don't think he'd pay her 2 cents if he was High Mighty Sith Emperor at this point. Okay, so he has the galaxy under his control, and I'm talking the whole fracking thing for what it's there, because, not every planet is discovered at this point that we know of, by Clone Wars era, but, most. He has an endless fleet, an endless army of droids, if he wanted it. He doesn't seem to care too much about droids, but they are auxiliary, because he has enough. Endless fleet, endless... He just has endless everything because of the Starforged. I think he would move the capital, though, to Coruscant, because that just seems to be a thing in Star Wars. Capital is Coruscant, because Coruscant is just like, the big center world. It's like, the logic is a little broken because it's not true, but it's kind of like having your capital be New York, just because New York is the most populous, American, for the Americans. For my country, if we wanted to have our capital the most populous, dense, quote unquote pretty city, because it's not that pretty, here in the country, it'd be New York. I'm guessing that's the idea with Coruscant. Just Coruscant is the planet you want to have your capital on, to say I rule the galaxy, people come live here. I think he'd keep the Starforge under lock and key, considering there'd be a bunch of dumbasses who probably think that they could control the Starforge, when the Starforge can only really be controlled by someone with the will and the strength and the force to control it. Revan had the will. Malak had the will, I guess, but Malak is a freaking blunt instrument and probably couldn't even tell if he was being controlled by the Starforge and under its influence. Korriban would remain as it is. He'd be training those who wanted to become Sith, and those who wanted to stay Dark Jedi. I think he really wouldn't care. He'd probably just let the Dark Jedi move right back into the temple on Coruscant, and let them keep the Dantooine places as long as they followed along his instructions. And Revan's not exactly the type of Sith to say, Oh, jeez, excuse me. Revan's not exactly the type of Sith that says, hey, go out and kill a bunch of people because you're evil now, therefore the rules here in the unspoken rulebook say you have to kill a bunch of people. He is very lenient. He's the most... I like Revan for one good thing, is that he broke the mold in terms of the Sith code and the Sith way of life, where although like Exar Kun before him wasn't exactly the type of Sith Lord to say, now that you are Sith, you have to immediately go out and murder people. Although he did kind of do that. But, you know, Exar Kun, I'm not going to talk about him right now, but Revan was more in that sense, in that he was like, you know, you are Sith, you are Dark Jedi. Doesn't mean you have to go right out and kill people. You just have to do as I say, follow my lead, follow my orders. Everything's good. Revan wasn't even known, as far as we know, for going out and committing just random acts of genocide and killing people for the sake of it. Similar to what I said about Vader the other day. A little different though. Revan is very much, I do evil stuff because I know it's what needs to be done for the greater good to come out of it. I don't know if you exactly buy into that, because I don't exactly buy into that wholeheartedly, although I do understand the logic, and I think it's a lot better done with Revan than a lot of other characters in all sorts of lore. But he's also not beneath killing people. I mean, they even have a picture that I'll throw up of him choking some random officer because they probably fucked up like Vader would do to somebody. So I mean, he does punish people, and he probably does have his own sadistic tendencies, because the dark side does influence you. I'm just saying it doesn't mean you have to immediately be just some sort of crazed animal going around killing people, but the dark side does influence you. Now, Revenant control, I'm getting way off topic again. Revenant control the Empire, in control of the galaxy. Now, one of two things could happen, and I'm going to have to go down the route I think is better to have my own opinion on. Either the Sith Emperor realizes, if he didn't realize already, Revan is in direct opposition to him now as his own Sith Emperor in the greater galaxy, and now he has the whole frickin' thing under his control. Or two, and he attacks him right then and there, saying, "Oh, I need to get this done and over with," several 100 years earlier than he actually did. Or two, the Sith Emperor still waits, expects Revan to wait, and they just don't ever have a conflict until Revan or he finally just go screw it. Yeah, you know, the concept was that Revan was somehow influencing the Sith Emperor not to attack yet. Well, there is no Revan to influence him now anymore, now is there? Another thing, Scion, still part of Revan's empire, so Scion would be on his team. As far as we can tell, Nihilus is probably within Revan's empire. Even Traya is probably inside of his empire, because we're led to believe that they are actually remnants of Revan's empire. Scion for the most part, Nihilus and Traya, you could argue, not really, they kind of came afterwards, but let's just say that they're there for the sake of saying that they're there. We're not really going to get into the exile talk, because talking about the exile is going to bring in a whole plethora of new questions and things I have to work out. I want to go the route that Revan probably attacked the Emperor first. So, Revan with the Star Forge under his control, because the Sith Emperor, like a dumbass, said, "Hey, these two Jedi found me on Droman Kos, Revan and Malak, or Alec. I'm going to turn them into Sith, and then I'm going to send them to go get the Star Forge, and not expect them to kind of be like, hey, this is like the best weapon to use ever in a war. Just endless factory." What, you know, I don't understand the logic. Revan could build this massive fleet in a matter of freaking weeks or months, build massive amounts of war droids, massive amounts of military hardware, beef up his trooper forces now that he controls the entire galaxy. He doesn't seem to have a problem with aliens either, so you have probably a bunch of alien soldiers as well, a bunch of human soldiers, even though the human soldiers kind of get a little D-baggish with Malak in charge, which goes to show Malak is now also not only an asshole, but a racist, or speciest, whatever you want to call him. So Revan builds up this massive force, and as far as we can tell, the Sith Empire has like what Droman Kos under their control, and what a couple other worlds in the unknown regions, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering Droman Kos is like right in the middle of Sith space, and considering where Korriban is, and even Malachor 5, it's kind of within Revan's sphere of control. So consistency has error. But let us say, for the sake of argument, Droman Kos isn't the only world under Sith control, because that makes things so much easier for Revan. Let's say they have a couple worlds under their control. Old Sith worlds, likely like the other Droman worlds. But they launch a massive invasion. Again, the idea is that Revan somehow held the Sith Emperor back from launching his invasion, so that leads me to believe that their military force was at the least prepared for war at this point, but not maybe to the degree that they were in the Old Republic time era, whatever. So, they're lacking in terms that they had to build their own ships and shipyards and get the resources from worlds, dig it out of the ground, and stuff like that. Revan doesn't have to give a shit about factory worlds. He kept them for the Republic because his idea was that he needed to prepare the galaxy later on for the Great War with the Sith. But the fact is, that's kind of like a backup plan. If you use the Starforge in conjunction with all the factory worlds in the galaxy, you have an endless military might. So he attacks the Sith Emperor, Darth Vitiate's Sith Empire, the true Sith Empire. He would likely at first meet a force that is a lot better than the Republic was, but in time, with how much Revan can just throw at them over and over and over and over, he could just send an entire army of droids, waste them away, kill a shit ton of Sith troopers on Vitiate's side, and then send out his own Sith troopers to mop them up, and they'd be so tired and bloodied by this point that there would be no fighting them. Plus, Revan has his own little army of Dark Jedi and Sith acolytes. You know, if he decided to take on another apprentice, who would that be? I don't know, but there'd probably be one, and they'd be, helping out. Again, allow some things to slide, because I'm not exactly the end-all, be-all teller of a story here. This is just my opinion on what, could happen, what might have happened. But Revan confronts the Sith Emperor. Now, this is getting into versus territory, and I don't like versus territory, because I feel like, you're kind of expressing a little bit of your own opinions on something, although some people do a good job at it. But needless to say, the question is, what if Revan basically beat the Emperor? Okay, so in this instance, let's say Revan beat the Emperor. I personally think he could have, but Revan was obviously betrayed by, what was that idiot's name? Scourge? Scourge can go to hell. I wouldn't have had to deal with the Sith Emperor if he just let Revan do his job. Revan kills the Sith Emperor. And frankly, if the Emperor's gone, the Council is defeated, mostly. Revan probably would have given an ultimatum to all the Sith and said, you can either die, and I will eliminate you as a species, the Red Sith, and as a people, everyone else. Or you could sign some sort of treaty. We're done. You're absorbed into my empire, and you become members of the Sith Empire, my Sith Empire, and I'll even let you Red Sith go back to Korriban. He'd probably go that route, because he is not the type of person to needlessly genocide people. By the time of the Old Republic, he thought it was a necessity to commit genocide, so let's not even go there, especially since he wasn't really a Sith Lord anymore. Whatever, Revan. You make less and less sense as people go on with your story. So that's really it there. He'd probably absorb the Sith after they likely would have given up after the Emperor was dead, because once your Emperor who's been alive for like 2,000 years or whatever is dead, you're kind of like, that's game, set, and match, I guess. Or maybe it was like 1,000 in some years. That'd be a very crappy story. So he's defeated. He's gone. There's no coming back. Revan would likely tell the Red Sith, go live on Korriban, go live on Zeos, take back your own territories. You are now under my command. I am the Dark Lord of the Sith. I will keep the peace. And essentially the Jedi are gone. He's not going to allow the Jedi to exist, because I think Revan understood that while he didn't necessarily hate Jedi, he didn't think Jedi were the best for the galaxy, I'd say, because of their sometimes their lack of doing anything, which is, kind of broken considering how many other stories say that Jedi were primed for action the minute something happened. Like, the Great Sith War, they were there. The Great Galactic War, they were there. The Clone Wars, when it broke out, they were there. So I don't know what the fuck happened with the Mandalorian Wars, where they just didn't do jack all to help the Republic that they are, by their own order's creation, mandated to protect. But let's let it slide. He wouldn't let the Jedi just willy-nilly survive. Oh, Jolie Bindo, that's the other one. Jolie Bindo probably would have just stayed on Kashyyyk. That's over with. Revan as Emperor would be a very hyper-militarized empire, considering the Starforge. Revan wanting the galaxy to sustain peace through force. Any sort of conflict that cropped up in the galaxy, he'd probably deal with at a snap of a finger with just overwhelming military power, just manpower, the power of the Starforge. He'd build up this massive Dark Jedi / Sith order across the entire galaxy, and probably just have Sith and Dark Jedi based everywhere. Considering the hyper paranoia he might have for the unknown regions where he found Vitiate after the Mandalorian Wars, he'd probably send expeditionary forces into the unknown regions, and any freaking people that they found there that pose a threat to the galaxy in his eyes, he'd probably deal with. I am not going to talk about the Vong again, because I've talked about them a billion times, and frankly, he wouldn't have to worry about them because he'd be way dead by that time, and that one little mention by Candace of them being there was a scout ship alone. That means that they're still in the void somewhere, traveling between galaxies. I think one problem he would have to deal with, though, on a personal level, are the Mandalorians. Say what you want about Revan, but I do think he'd see the Mandalorians as a threat to the galaxy, and they are. Hate to burst your bubble. I'm gonna make another video one day about why the Mandalorians piss me off so much. But again, I don't care if people like the Mandalorians. I'm not saying you're not allowed to. I don't even have the power to stop you. Personally, I just think they're not exactly the greatest people in the entire universe. However, Revan being Revan, you can't tell me this guy who probably has a bit of paranoia now that he is in charge of this massive galaxy, now has this massive military power, wouldn't look at the Mandalorians and be like, I don't want you people to ever be a threat again, because they served the Sith twice now, and he didn't know this, but they would come to serve the Sith time and again thereafter. So the Mandalorians probably would have been pacified by a Revan-dominated galaxy and a Revan Sith Empire, because he wouldn't want to deal with them ever again. Would he eventually make peace and say, you people are subdued, I now command you, I now control you, you will sit on your planets and just cool off, live your lives, stop going around killing people for quote-unquote honor, which includes killing innocent women and children for that honor? Yes, I think he'd do that because he doesn't want to deal with them anymore. I think eventually he would have found another apprentice. Do you want to say that's Bastila? I don't care if you want to say it's Bastila, because eventually Revan needed to be succeeded by someone else, because he created this galactic Sith Empire. I'm not saying that's what it would officially be called. It'd probably just be called the Sith Empire. And they would have either had to kill Revan or wait for him to die. And frankly, with how powerful people want to act like Revan is, I'm going to say they probably waited for him to die before they took over. And Revan, if he's intelligent, if he's smart, if he wants to plan for a galaxy to stay stable, he would choose someone to succeed him as Emperor, as the Dark Lord of the Sith, who wasn't some crazed maniac like Malak, who wasn't just some sort of genocidal freak like Vitiate. Someone along the lines of, like, you know, himself, or even Exar Kun, or Naga Sada, or Marka Ragnos, where they wanted someone to take over, namely themselves, but they wouldn't necessarily say, once I die, if I die, the galaxy's just gonna fall apart because fuck it. They wanted someone to take over from their position. Revan being who he is, he'd probably pick someone to succeed him as Emperor, as a Dark Lord, who had not only a cool level head, was strong in the Force, was a competent duelist, but a level head, and then he'd introduce them to the Starforge, show them how to command that thing that we know has a bit of a sentience to it and is probably influence you in the dark side, which is why reportedly Revan didn't stay there that often, because he didn't want to be so influenced by the Starforge. You know, whether that's actually true, just, you know, go with it. Excuse me, I had a drink. You know, I don't know who this person would be. It definitely wouldn't be Scion. It definitely wouldn't be Nihilus. It definitely wouldn't be Traya. Bastila doesn't even fit that mold. She's not exactly the leadership type, and when she goes evil, she's a little crazy. Like when she says in the game, "Oh, I love you. I can't possibly betray you." Bullshit, lady. Bullshit. You know it. I know it. You're eventually going to attack me, and I'm going to have to kill you. Best get it while I can. That's so disgusting. I apologize. But yeah, Basila's not leadership material. Not even as a Jedi. So, we're getting into fanfiction territory here. Someone with the ability, the strength, the straightforwardness. You know, again, even with the fanfiction stuff, if you want to go the route that somehow you ended up with Bastila anyways, and they are Sithly lovers, oh god, and they had kids, if the kid proved to be a competent, stable leader, I think Revan would choose him. If, however, Revan saw his kid was a douchebag like Malak who went around killing people for the fuck's sake of it, he'd probably say, I'm not putting you in charge. I'm putting someone who's actually competent in charge, because Revan isn't all about, you know, nepotism. He's about order. He's about consistency. He's about strength. He's about the securement of the entire galaxy's peace. Does he do it through brute force tactics sometimes? Yeah, but his brute force tactics are a lot more surgical than Malak's were, because Malak was just purely kill, gut, obliterate to get his way. Revan's more like surgically remove the tumor to keep the body in check. Malak is take a chainsaw to the lower half of the body to get rid of any form of infection. I think Revan probably would have dealt with corporate, you know, people like Zerka, who eventually would have got on his nerves because he'd want to keep certain pieces. I don't know exactly when the Zerka Corporation got so powerful that it was able to just legally take slaves off Kashyyyk, but I think Kashyyyk was probably in, well, I don't know, you know, I don't know what the whole deal was there, but eventually Revan probably would have dealt with Zerka, said, get the fuck off Kashyyyk, leave the Wookiees alone, because, you know, he doesn't exactly seem like the type of person who'd just be anti-alien. Revan's not exactly anti-alien. Malak was anti-alien. I don't know what that is, because Revan just doesn't seem like he's anti-alien. So, what was with all the random humanocentrism again? God, speech is a thing. He probably would have dealt with the Hutts, you know, I already talked about it with Vader. The Hutts are always a fucking problem, but with his endless military power, just would have humbled the Hutts, taken over all of Hutt space, even though Hutt space is a really strange concept because any galactic power, Galactic Republic, Galactic Empire, Darth Krayt's Empire, always basically are in control of Hutt space, but it's like an autonomous zone where they don't actually do much there, and the Hutts are allowed to do whatever they want. But Revan's probably not going to go for that. He probably would have entered Hutt space and said, all of you are now under my control, firmly, wholly, let's gut out the the criminal underbelly. You know, any guy who becomes just that powerful in terms of Revan to become like a Sith Emperor with that much political power, that much military power, eventually would have gone to his head. Maybe, but you know, the fact is, Revan would have done what he felt needed to be done to secure the galaxy for thousands of years after he was dead, which would hopefully be to constitute some sort of monarchy that chose a Dark Lord of the Sith not based off crazed madness to kill people, but of their ability to lead and their ability to not just make the Empire fall into chaos. After Revan's death, what would happen to his Empire? If he chose someone competent, they would have been able to carry on his ideas for thousands of years, likely would have been able to deal with any sort of problems that came across. Yes, eventually the Vong, they would have probably been able to deal with the Vong just as easily. I'm not going to get into it. You know, this empire, this empire probably would have gone deeper into the unknown regions because it would have had an inner paranoia because of Vitiate, because of the threat it posed to Revan. Revan himself probably would have moved into the unknown regions, like I said before. Whoever carried on after him would probably want to go into the unknown regions for two things: inner paranoia brought on by his master, Revan, or whatever his relationship is to him, and two, the need to take more territory. You know, if Revan's empire was this great and this grand as people want to make it out to possibly have been, does that mean that they'd even go on into the galaxy's two neighboring mini galaxies, Fire Fist and the Rishi Maze? Who knows? If they got into Fire Fist, they would have had to fight the Nagai and the Toph at some point, but I'm not going there. So, I think I'm done for this one. I hope this was to the enjoyment of several people. I'm going to put up a couple pictures on this one. Again, I recommend you do something else while I'm talking because, you know, my videos aren't exactly the greatest and there's going to be a couple pictures. It's sometimes one, as you've seen. But I don't have any more to talk about. I've been talking for 42 minutes. Jesus. So yeah, do the things other YouTubers tell you to do at the end of YouTube videos. Like, subscribe. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Leave comments. Leave other what ifs for me to use at some point. And I can promise you, in an upcoming video, I will have a surprise for you in terms of I may not be the only one talking. Now, with that cliffhanger, I bid you all a good day. I'm Carl. I'm not gonna make that into a thing. Now, I'll see you all at the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.